The fall of the Roman Empire did not mean the end of Rome's influence. In fact, its collapse in 476 CE marked not an ending, but the transformation of one of the most powerful civilizations in human history into a permanent foundation for the modern world. Even today, nearly every aspect of governance, law, architecture, language, engineering, and culture carries the fingerprints of Rome. To understand the modern world is, in many ways, to understand Rome. One of the most powerful and lasting contributions of Rome is its legal system. Roman law, especially the concept of codified laws, formed the backbone of many modern legal systems in Europe and beyond. The idea that laws should be written, organized, and applied equally to citizens was revolutionary in ancient times. Concepts such as innocent until proven guilty, property rights, contracts, and legal representation all trace their roots back to Roman legal traditions. The famous Corpus Juris Civilis, commissioned by Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, became the foundation for civil law systems still used in countries like France, Germany, and many parts of Latin America today. Another major legacy of Rome lies in language. Latin, the language of Rome, is the ancestor of the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Even English, though a Germanic language, has been heavily influenced by Latin through Norman French and scholarly vocabulary. Words related to law, medicine, science, and religion often come directly from Latin roots. Terms like audience, justice, military, and constitution all carry Roman linguistic heritage. In academic and scientific fields, Latin remains a universal reference point, proving how deeply Rome shaped communication across centuries. Rome also revolutionized engineering and architecture, leaving behind structures and ideas that still define modern construction. The Romans mastered the use of concrete, arches, aqueducts, and roads. Their engineering allowed them to build massive infrastructure networks that connected their vast empire. Many of these innovations are still in use today. Modern highways follow the same principles as Roman roads: straight routes, durability, and strategic planning. Aqueduct systems inspired modern water supply engineering, while Roman architectural designs like domes and arches can be seen in government buildings, museums, and monuments around the world. The Colosseum, the Pantheon, and Roman baths continue to influence modern stadiums, civic centers, and public spaces. Politically, Rome's influence is equally profound. The Roman Republic introduced early forms of representative governance, including elected officials, checks and balances, and a Senate system. Although limited in practice during its time, these ideas later inspired modern democratic systems, especially in the United States and Europe. The structure of senates, constitutional frameworks, and civic duty all draw inspiration from Roman political experiments. Even the concept of citizenship, being part of a political and legal community with rights and responsibilities, was heavily shaped by Roman innovation. In military strategy, Rome set the foundation for organized warfare and disciplined armies. The Roman military was one of the most efficient fighting forces in history, with advanced training, engineering skills, and strict hierarchy. Modern military organization still reflects Roman principles such as structured ranks, standardized equipment, and tactical formations. The concept of building roads and supply lines for rapid troop movement was also perfected by the Romans and remains essential in modern military logistics. Culturally, Rome's influence is everywhere. Literature, philosophy, and art from Roman times continue to inspire modern storytelling and thought. Writers like Virgil, Cicero, and Ovid shaped Western literature and rhetorical traditions. Roman mythology, heavily influenced by Greek myths, still appears in books, films, and television today. Characters like Jupiter, Mars, and Venus are still recognized in modern culture, showing how Roman belief systems continue to echo through time. Religion is another area where Rome left a deep mark. The rise of Christianity as a dominant global religion was closely tied to the Roman Empire. After Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity in 313 CE, it spread rapidly across Europe under Roman influence. The structure of the early church, including its hierarchy and administrative system, was modeled after Roman governance. Even today, the Vatican in Rome stands as a symbolic continuation of this historical connection. Finally, Rome's greatest legacy may be its idea of civilization itself, the belief in order, structure, infrastructure, law, and cultural unity across vast territories. Modern cities, governments, and institutions still operate on principles that Rome developed over 2,000 years ago. In conclusion, although the Roman Empire fell nearly 1,500 years ago, its legacy never truly disappeared. Instead, it evolved and integrated into the foundation of modern society. From the roads we drive on to the laws we follow, from the words we speak to the governments we elect, Rome continues to live on, not as an empire of stone and armies, but as a silent architect of the modern world. The fall of the Roman Empire in 476 CE is one of the most debated and studied turning points in world history. It did not happen overnight, nor was it caused by a single event. Instead, it was the result of a long and complex combination of political instability, economic decline, military pressure, and social transformation. The end of Rome marked the transition from the ancient world into the medieval era, reshaping Europe and the global historical trajectory. One of the most significant internal problems was political instability. In the later centuries of the empire, especially after the 3rd century CE, Rome experienced constant changes in leadership. Emperors rose and fell rapidly, often through assassination, military coups, or civil war. This period, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, saw dozens of emperors ruling in quick succession. With no stable leadership, long-term governance became impossible. The empire became divided between the Eastern and Western Roman empires in 395 CE, weakening its unity further. While the Eastern Empire, Byzantium, survived, the Western Empire struggled to maintain control. Another major factor was economic decline. Rome's economy relied heavily on conquest and expansion, which brought in slaves, wealth, and resources. However, as expansion slowed, these resources diminished. The empire faced inflation, heavy taxation, and a shrinking workforce. Many farmers abandoned their land due to high taxes and insecurity, leading to reduced agricultural production. Trade routes became unsafe due to constant invasions, and cities began to shrink. The economic system that once supported Rome's greatness slowly collapsed under its own weight. The military crisis also played a crucial role. The Roman army, once the strongest force in the ancient world, became increasingly difficult to maintain. As recruitment declined, Rome relied heavily on foreign soldiers, especially Germanic tribes. While these soldiers were effective in battle, their loyalty often lay with their own leaders rather than Rome itself. This created internal divisions and weakened military discipline. At the same time, Rome faced constant pressure from external groups such as the Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns, who pushed deeper into Roman territory. One of the most famous events in this decline was the invasion by the Visigoths in 410 CE, led by King Alaric. For the first time in nearly 800 years, the city of Rome itself was sacked. This shocking event revealed how vulnerable the once invincible empire had become. Later, in 455 C, the Vandals also attacked and plundered Rome, further weakening its authority and morale. Another important cause was social and cultural transformation. As the empire expanded, it became increasingly difficult to maintain a unified Roman identity. The population became more diverse, and loyalty to Rome weakened in many regions. Local leaders and provincial authorities gained more power, reducing central control. Traditional Roman values of civic duty and discipline began to fade, replaced by regional interests and survival instincts. In 476 C, the final collapse of the Western Roman Empire occurred when the Germanic leader Odoacer deposed the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Interestingly, this emperor was only a young boy and had little real power. Odoacer did not claim the title of emperor himself, but instead ruled Italy as a king under the nominal authority of the Eastern Roman Emperor. This event is traditionally marked as the end of ancient Rome in the West. However, the fall of Rome was not a sudden disappearance of civilization. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, continued for nearly another 1,000 years until the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Roman traditions, laws, and culture also survived through the medieval kingdoms of Europe, shaping future nations. In conclusion, the fall of Rome was not the result of one catastrophe, but a gradual weakening of a vast and complex system. Political corruption, economic struggles, military overextension, and external invasions all combined to bring down one of history's greatest empires. Yet even in its fall, Rome did not vanish, it transformed. Its ideas, systems, and legacy continued to shape the world long after its political end, proving that Rome's influence extended far beyond the lifespan of its empire. When the western part of the Roman Empire fell in 476 CE, it was not the end of Roman civilization. In fact, the eastern half of the empire continued to exist for almost another 1,000 years. This surviving state is commonly known as the Byzantine Empire, though its citizens always referred to themselves as Romans. Its capital, Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, became one of the most powerful and advanced cities in the medieval world. The Byzantine Empire preserved many core elements of Roman governance, law, and culture, while also adapting to new realities of the medieval period. It acted as a bridge between the ancient and modern worlds, ensuring that Roman traditions did not disappear, but instead evolved. One of the greatest achievements of Byzantium was the preservation and refinement of Roman law. Under Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century CE, the empire created the famous Corpus Juris Civilis, or body of civil law. This massive legal code organized centuries of Roman laws into a clear and structured system. It became one of the most influential legal works in history, forming the foundation for many modern legal systems in Europe. Even today, civil law traditions in countries such as France, Italy, and parts of Latin America are deeply influenced by this Byzantine legal heritage. The Byzantine Empire was also a center of religious transformation. Christianity, which had grown within the Roman Empire, became the official religion and deeply shaped Byzantine identity. However, over time, differences in practice and theology led to a split between the Western Roman Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church in 1054 CE, an event known as the Great Schism. This division created two major branches of Christianity: Roman Catholicism in the West and Eastern Orthodoxy in Byzantium. The Byzantine Church developed its own traditions, liturgy, and leadership structure, with the Patriarch of Constantinople playing a central role. In terms of military strength, Byzantium was highly advanced and resilient. It faced constant threats from powerful enemies, including Persians, Arabs, Seljuk Turks, and later the Ottoman Turks. Despite being surrounded by hostile forces, the empire survived for centuries due to strong fortifications, strategic diplomacy, and innovative military technology. One of its most famous weapons was Greek fire, a mysterious incendiary substance used in naval warfare that could burn even on water. The massive walls of Constantinople, especially the Theodosian walls, protected the city from countless sieges for nearly 1,000 years. Economically, Constantinople became one of the wealthiest cities in the world. Its location between Europe and Asia made it a major hub for trade routes connecting the Silk Road with the Mediterranean. Goods such as silk, spices, gold, and artwork passed through its markets. The city was known for its luxury, advanced infrastructure, and vibrant cultural life. Hagia Sophia, built under Emperor Justinian I, stood as a symbol of Byzantine architectural brilliance and religious devotion. Culturally, Byzantium played a crucial role in preserving ancient Greek and Roman knowledge. Many classical texts in philosophy, science, mathematics, and literature survived only because Byzantine scholars copied and studied them. Without this preservation, much of ancient Greek and Roman intellectual heritage might have been lost during the Middle Ages. This knowledge later spread to Western Europe during the Renaissance, fueling a revival of learning and science. However, despite its strength, the Byzantine Empire gradually weakened over time due to internal conflicts, economic difficulties, and continuous military pressure. One of its greatest blows came during the Fourth Crusade in 1004 CE, when Western European crusaders attacked and looted Constantinople. This devastating event severely weakened the empire and marked the beginning of its final decline. In its final centuries, Byzantium struggled to defend itself against the rising power of the Ottoman Turks. The empire steadily lost territory until only Constantinople remained. In 1453 CE, the city finally fell after a long siege led by Sultan Mehmed Roman II. This event marked the official end of the Byzantine Empire and is often considered the final chapter of the Roman world. In conclusion, the Byzantine Empire represents the long survival and transformation of Rome rather than its immediate disappearance. It preserved Roman law, culture, governance, and Christian traditions while adapting to a changing world. Even after its fall, its influence continued through Eastern Orthodox Christianity, legal systems, art, and the transmission of classical knowledge to Europe. The story of Byzantium proves that Rome did not truly die in 476 CE. It continued to live, evolve, and shape history for nearly a millennium afterward. When people think about the Roman Empire, they often imagine emperors, gladiators, and massive armies. But the true strength of Rome was not only in its rulers and conquests, it was in its everyday people. The daily life of Romans, from wealthy elites to poor citizens and enslaved individuals, reveals how one of history's greatest civilizations functioned at a human level. Roman society was highly structured, deeply cultural, and surprisingly modern in many of its habits. Roman society was divided into clear social classes. At the top were the patricians, the wealthy aristocratic families who owned large estates and held political power. Below them were the plebeians, the common citizens who made up the majority of the population. They were farmers, craftsmen, traders, and laborers. At the bottom were slaves who had no legal rights and were considered property. Slavery was widespread in Rome, often resulting from war, debt, or birth into slavery. Despite this rigid structure, there was some social mobility, especially for freed slaves, called freedmen, who could gain wealth and influence over time. Family life in Rome was strongly patriarchal. The head of the household, known as the paterfamilias, held absolute authority over his family, including children and slaves. Roman families placed great importance on loyalty, discipline, and tradition. Women in Rome had limited political rights, but they played significant roles in managing households, education of children, and sometimes even influencing political affairs indirectly. Wealthy Roman women could own property and engage in business, though they were still under legal authority of male guardians in many cases. Daily life in Rome varied greatly depending on social class. Wealthy Romans lived in large villas with gardens, mosaics, and private baths. They enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle, with slaves handling most of the labor. Poor citizens, however, lived in crowded apartment buildings called insulae, which were often unsafe and poorly constructed. These buildings could be several stories high and were prone to fires and collapses. Despite these differences, all Romans shared access to public spaces such as baths, markets, and forums. One of the most important aspects of Roman life was the public bath culture. Roman baths were not just places for washing, they were centers of social interaction, business discussions, and relaxation. People of different classes could meet and talk in bathhouses, making them an important part of Roman social life. Facilities included hot rooms, cold pools, exercise areas, and libraries in some cases. Food and dining also played a central role in Roman culture. The diet of common people consisted mainly of bread, porridge, vegetables, olives, and wine diluted with water. Wealthy Romans enjoyed elaborate feasts with multiple courses, exotic ingredients, and entertainment. Dining was often a social event where guests reclined on couches and were served by slaves. Banquets could last for hours and included music, poetry, and storytelling. Entertainment was extremely important in Roman society. The most famous form of public entertainment was the gladiatorial games held in massive arenas like the Colosseum. Gladiators, often slaves or prisoners of war, fought in brutal contests for public amusement. Chariot races were another popular spectacle, held in large stadiums like the Circus Maximus. These events were not only entertainment, but also a way for emperors to gain popularity and control public opinion through the famous phrase, bread and circuses. Education in Rome was highly valued among the elite. Wealthy children were taught reading, writing, rhetoric, philosophy, and mathematics by private tutors, often in Greek and Latin. Education focused heavily on public speaking and persuasion, as these skills were essential for political and legal careers. Boys were typically trained for public life, while girls were educated mainly in household management, though exceptions existed. Religion in Roman daily life was deeply integrated into society. Romans worshipped a wide range of gods and goddesses, including Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Neptune. Religious rituals were performed regularly to ensure good fortune and favor from the gods. Household shrines called Leraria were common in Roman homes, where families prayed to protective spirits. Over time, as Christianity spread, Roman religious practices gradually transformed, leading to major cultural changes. Roman cities themselves were highly advanced for their time. They featured paved roads, aqueducts for fresh water, public fountains, sewage systems, markets, temples, and administrative buildings. The Roman Forum served as the political, economic, and social heart of the city, where citizens gathered for debates, business, and ceremonies. In conclusion, Roman daily life was a complex blend of discipline, hierarchy, culture, and innovation. While the elite enjoyed luxury and power, ordinary citizens experienced a structured but vibrant society filled with public life, entertainment, and community interaction. Even today, many aspects of modern urban living, public baths, sports stadiums, education systems, and city planning can trace their origins back to Roman society. Understanding how Romans lived helps us see that their empire was not just built on conquest, but on a deeply organized and influential way of life that continues to shape the modern world. The story of the Roman Empire is not just a tale of ancient conquest and collapse. It is a living foundation of the modern world. Even though the empire fell centuries ago, its influence continues to shape how we think, govern, build cities, write laws, and understand civilization itself. Rome is not simply history, it is a blueprint that still guides much of human society. One of the most important reasons Rome still matters is its influence on modern governance and political systems. The Roman Republic introduced early forms of representative governance, including elected officials, assemblies, and a Senate system. While imperfect and limited to certain classes, these ideas became the foundation for later democratic systems. Modern countries such as the United States, France, and many others adopted Roman, inspired structures like senates, constitutions, and systems of checks and balances. Even the concept of political debate and public voting owes much to Roman traditions. Rome also shaped the idea of law as a structured and universal system. Before Rome, many societies relied on tribal customs or ruler-based decisions. Rome changed this by creating written laws that applied across its vast empire. This idea evolved into civil law systems that are still used today in many countries. The principle that laws should be written, accessible, and applied equally to citizens is one of Rome's greatest contributions to modern justice. Another lasting impact of Rome is seen in urban planning and infrastructure. Modern cities still reflect Roman engineering principles. Roads are built for efficiency and connectivity, much like Roman roads that connected provinces across thousands of kilometers. Bridges, aqueducts, inspired water systems, drainage networks, and public buildings all trace their conceptual roots back to Roman design. Even modern stadiums and arenas are inspired by Roman architecture, particularly the Colosseum, which influenced how large public entertainment spaces are constructed. The Roman influence is also deeply embedded in language and communication. Latin, the language of Rome, is the foundation of many modern languages. Romance languages such as Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian directly evolved from Latin. In addition, English contains thousands of Latin-derived words, especially in fields like law, science, medicine, and religion. Words such as justice, audience, Emmanuel, and education all carry Roman linguistic heritage. Latin continues to be used in scientific classification, legal terminology, and academic mottos, showing its enduring importance. Culturally, Rome continues to inspire literature, art, and entertainment. Roman myths and historical figures appear in modern books, films, and television series. Stories of Julius Caesar, Augustus, gladiators, and Roman gods continue to captivate global audiences. Roman architecture, with its arches, domes, and columns, remains a symbol of strength and authority in government buildings, museums, and monuments worldwide. Even modern storytelling often mirrors Roman themes of power, betrayal, ambition, and empire building. The Roman influence also extends into military organization and strategy. Modern armies still reflect Roman principles of discipline, hierarchy, training, and logistics. The idea of structured ranks, standardized equipment, and strategic road networks for troop movement originated in Roman military systems. Their emphasis on engineering in warfare, such as building forts, roads, and siege weapons, continues to influence military planning today. Religion is another area where Rome's legacy is deeply felt. The spread of Christianity within the Roman Empire transformed it into one of the world's major religions. The administrative structure of the early church was influenced by Roman governance systems. The city of Rome itself became a spiritual center, and the legacy of the Byzantine continuation ensured that Roman religious traditions spread across Europe and beyond. Perhaps the most important reason Rome still matters is its role in shaping the idea of civilization itself. Rome demonstrated how a large, diverse empire could be organized through law, infrastructure, culture, and shared identity. It showed both the strengths and weaknesses of centralized power, expansion, and governance. The rise and fall of Rome became a lesson for future generations about leadership, stability, and the consequences of corruption and overexpansion. In conclusion, the Roman Empire did not disappear when it fell. It transformed into the foundation of the modern world. Its systems of law, governance, language, engineering, culture, and military organization continue to influence nearly every aspect of global society. Rome is not just a chapter in history books, it is a continuing presence in our daily lives. From the roads we travel to the laws we follow, from the words we speak to the governments we trust, the legacy of Rome remains deeply embedded in human civilization. In conclusion, the Roman Empire matters not only because of what it was, but because of what it became. It teaches us that civilizations are living systems that evolve, adapt, and leave behind lasting imprints long after their political structures fade. Rome's roads, laws, language, and ideas still guide the modern world, proving that its legacy is not confined to history books, but is woven into the fabric of everyday life. The empire may have fallen, but Rome itself endures quietly, powerfully, and permanently. Within the foundations of the world we live in today,